Hi, this is Bill Foote, and this is week two of Bayesian inference and calibration of system dynamics models. Oh my. This is episode two. In the first episode, we looked at a design, and please go back to that. And there are notes on the course website, systemdynamics101.com, add inference. What we're going to do here is take the wolf moose model that we had already developed in week one. Here we have the stock of moose customers, wolf customers, moose in, moose out, wolf in, wolf out, and we're using the language here of customer acquisition and customer switching. Uh, it's possible that the switching is out forever or can be taken over a bit by the wolf. Okay, that's it. And we have switching rates and acquisition rates for these two, what effectively are birth death processes. Just note that the moose gets this minus this, and that's integrated across time. Now, in the model that we're working with, there's a capacity issue. And the capacity will be part of how much the moose customers are as a percentage of the ability of the moose enterprise, Mooseco, to sustain that number of customers. And the same with the Wolfco ability to sustain it. So I've added these two auxiliary variables. Remember how you do that? You just use this tool and you write in a variable, escape from that. And the Vensim model is pretty straightforward putting this together. Watch what happens though. Let's see if I can move this. Oh, I can't. Okay. What we're going to do is, here is one loop back from the stock of moose back to moose acquisition. And let me try to pull these out a little bit. Okay, good. That's a little bit easier to see. If we look at the equation for moose acquisition, you see it's the rate times how many moose, right? So it's not a percent change or anything like that. That's the acquisition rate. This is actually the flow, and we're calling it F, flow moose acquisition. It'll be the same for the switching, same for the for Wolfco as well. Okay, now watch what we're going to do. Just simple trick. We have moose capacity here. We haven't even defined what that is yet, have we? No, but we will in a second. Let's go from here down to here. Remember, Alt click will get us there. There we go. Just want to clean this up just a tad. And for some reason, it doesn't want me to move that one. Okay, we won't. But I do want this down a little bit. There we go. Let's try that. And formatting is just so much fun. So let's take this moose capacity and put it here. Let's draw another arrow for moose capacity. No, actually, this is not right. This is not right. This is moose capacity. And let's just get back to where I started. having lost my train of thought completely. There we go. There we go. So we do have moose capacity. And we might set that at, I don't know, 100 moose. Okay, I don't know. We're going to set it at something. But there's something that comes in between moose and capacity in our model. And if you go back and look at the paper and pencil version of that model, what you will see is something like this. Put an auxiliary variable in here, and we'll call this A moose availability. Okay, the number of moose available, moose customers available. Okay, so you have that. Oh, come on. Let's make this a little bit easier to read. There we go. We're going to draw arrows from the stock of moose down to moose availability, from capacity number to moose availability. All of these are going to be part of the calculation here. And then from moose availability up to moose acquisition. Fix these a little bit. Okay. Now, what's moose availability going to look like? Well, let's put it in right now. Notice I have moose capacity, which is going to be a constant, possibly, and moose. Okay, possibly. And this will be equal to 1 minus the ratio of moose to capacity. And as we papered and penciled it, if we had 20 moose and capacity of 100, 1 minus 20 divided by 100 would give us 1 minus 0.2, or 0.8. So we can see that that 0.8 is going to feature in our, there we go, in terms of that. Okay, now what's it going to feature? It's going to be featured inside of the flow itself. Let's set this at 100 for the moment. And set this at, there we go. Now we have a new thing in here called availability. So if the acquisition rate is 50% times moose availability at, let's say for the moment it is 80%, 50 times 80 is 0.4. Notice how much of 50% has been dropped. It goes from 50 to 40. So this acts exactly like a discount. Make sure we put another asterisk in here. And we got it. Okay, so that's done. We'll do the same down here and look at the results. So let's put in A for auxiliary. This is wolf, the nomenclature convention that we've adopted. And in math, notation is everything, as I keep getting reminded. Arrows everywhere. And I'm going to start up here. Alt, click. We can fix these later. Alt, click. Alt, click. Okay. Let's set wolf capacity at 30 and put in a formula very similar to moose availability and modify the flow for wolf acquisition. And once we get all of that done, then if you want to go back and play with the formatting, be my guest. But for right now, let's pull up the equation editor for, okay, this means I will make this 30. And this one will be 1. And notice I have wolf and wolf capacity here. And so this will be 1 minus the stock of wolf at any given time during the simulation divided by wolf capacity. And we're going to say this is okay. And finally, we insert. Notice the complication here. We already have moose and wolf, but we're going to get another wolf in here. Watch. And that's through availability. Okay. Remember, that's a function of wolf stock. It's going to be wolf stock squared in here. And that means it's going to be a potentially very strong interaction. Okay. I think we can run this. Now, watch what this is. Run a single simulation. Things changed a lot. As we kind of predicted, well, the wolf still lags and the moose customers still lead. But notice it's dampened tremendously because of the interaction here. This discounting has changed, and this number will change. If we look at this quickly, we see moose availability go down and go up a little bit and over. And moose, here's the moose. What is that? What do you think that is? Let's look. Let's go here. There it is. Look at the acquisition. Now, customer acquisition counts all over the place. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. The flow rate is highly variable. So you're the sales manager for a region. You have to manage through the months of down and up and down and up. It's almost like the famous bullwhip effect. The customer base doesn't change much. Boy, look at the work you have set out for your salespeople. It's going to be interesting for them. And what does switching look like? Again, you get this rip saw all the way through all of the flows. Everything's nice and cool with the moose and cool with the wolf. Oh, is it though? Let's check that. Sure. That's the old one. In fact, we don't even want to see that anymore. There we go. Very, very even. And these are old ones that are contained inside here. Yeah, very smooth. So, a couple of stories to tell. Now, also what we were going to do is give ourselves a little bit of room over here. We were going to create a way make moose capacity and wolf capacity endogenous. In other words, occurring within a bigger system. There's still going to be something exogenous. Acquisition rate, acquisition rate. We can make that endogenous too, but it doesn't really matter that much. It could help a little bit with the dynamics and the reality of what we're trying to show. But let's figure out how to make wolf and uh, uh, moose capacity somehow uh, dependent upon something else. And the something else will make this model look just like, oh, let's say, an epidemic model, for example, or an aging model for accounts receivable, or for machines, or for training people through HR programs, and growing people and developing people at different levels of job maturity as they go through and increasing responsibility. Let's add a new stock. Let's call it customers. S customers. So this is the group, like the population. Okay, and we're going to assume that this is short run, that the customer base is fixed. And the question now is, how is that going to feed this capacity? And how will this feed woof, wolf capacity? Not too hard to do, but it should be interesting for us to try to get a handle on this. So we're going to have customers go out from there into the wild. Okay, this will be flow, and that was S customers. We'll call this flow customers. Okay, and that's a dangerous way to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And we will have, I'm just going to need a little bit more space here to move one of these things around a little bit. Okay, that's good enough. So whatever's coming out, flowing out from the customer base is going to be the new capacity. Okay, it's going to be splitting off into moose. Some fraction will be in moose, and the rest will be in the wolf. Okay, so if that's the case, we're going to have some relationship between here and down over here somewhere. Okay, let me pull this over a little bit and to give us a little bit more room. And you see, we can create as much as we want. There we go. That looks good. Let's put a arrow from here to here. Let's see if I can grab that successfully. Okay, good enough. Maybe I want to put it up here. There we go. That's a little better. And the rate at which customers go out is somehow going to depend upon the moose and the wolf, okay, as a fraction. So, in a sense, what we want to do is relate moose. We could also relate wolf, but that might be too complicated, back to the gross customer base, the available market itself. And then it becomes available, a piece of it to the Moose Co. and the rest to Wolf Co. So that's our strategy. That's what we're going to try. Let's see how we can do that. So a couple of things that we have to think about here. Thing number one is what's going to be flowing out. And that will all cycle back. So if we start, say, with 150 customers stock, and I'm getting that from looking over here, 40 and 10 is 50. Yeah, well, I mean, that's, I'm just adding up the wolf capacity and moose capacity we're using. We could change this, of course. Just say we have 150 customers. Some fraction of them is going to flow out and become uh, uh, moose, and some fraction is going to flow out and be wolf. So effectively, it's wolf acquisition and moose acquisition will feed into customers. Okay, that'll be the flow out. But the fraction for capacity is not a flow. It ends up being like a stock. So it'll be the stock of customers that will be assigned to moose capacity and the rest to wolf capacity. So we need to put all of those ideas into here, realizing there's kind of a conservation equation here. We can't have any more capacity than customers at any given point in time. Okay? At any given point in time, as they flow out, we get a new capacity. The capacity starts to drop over time. That's the idea here. But let's put in the first idea first. Let's create an auxiliary oh no, I don't want to do that. I want to put in a shadow variable. I just don't want to connect lines all over the place. And the first one will be the flow for moose acquisition. And the second one will be the flow for wolf acquisition. Notice the nomenclature helps with us here. Okay, these are the flows. And then we link this up from here, moose to flow of customers. Wolf to the flow of customers. I'm going to be running into a problem. I hope you can see it. I still have customers here. I may want to, this linkage might not be necessary, but I think I want it. But let's just see if we need it. This will be a rate. This will flow back. And in a sense, I really want all of these hitting that. Oh, it's going to be interesting to see how we manage that piece. Okay. Now, the other thing is we need to create another variable here which allocates to moose and 1 minus this number to wolf. Okay, so we'll just call this a allocation, a customer allocation. Let's call it that. Doing a little thinking on the fly here. So we have something called customer allocation. Move that over a little bit. Again, there we go. This is the right idea down here. I don't think we're going to be able to compute it. I think I can get this to compute, but I just want to be a little bit careful about how we go about that. So we're going to put customers here, and we're also going to bring moose here. All right, we're going to form a ratio of moose to customers, and then use that here as basically some notion of capacity. So some fraction of this will be that, and 1 minus this fraction. In other words, I just need to make a fraction, will be the capacity down here. And what I did is I did take that arrow off. So look at what's happening here. S customers as a stock is going to be decreased by F customers, a flow out. Okay, so that'll be fine. There will be an initial value that we need to put in there. Okay, let's look at this one. The flow, I'm just going to basically say is moose acquisition plus wolf acquisition. Okay, that takes care of that very nicely. And if we put in another variable here, okay, call this auxiliary variable A, customer initial, so that's the initial available market. Connect that auxiliary variable to the stock variable. Go back in. Let's call this, oh, let's say 150 for the moment. Now we have the stock of customers. We can use this initial number, say OK, and now that's been defined as well. So what do we need to do with this allocation? Well, first of all, we need to connect it. We need to connect it to customers somehow in some fraction, create some fraction of this so that we can create an assignment to moose capacity. That's where we want to go. Look at moose availability. It's 1 minus S moose over A moose capacity. Stock of moose customers divided by moose capacity. That's the kind of idea we want here as we go ahead with this. I'm going to keep things really simple here. I'm going to make this that complicated. Let's just keep this a fixed fraction. The customer allocation rule. I think we can get a lot more clever than that. It might entail the use of a lookup function as well. But let's just keep this as simple as possible. Let's feed into this 2 shadow variables. One is the initial wolf customer base, and the other is the initial moose. You know, one's bigger than the other. Let's do it this way. Put an arrow from here. This is all in the interest of keeping it simple. And I want to see if it works. And then let's just take wolf. We already know that's bigger. I mean, smaller rather than the moose. Okay. And we can put some additional logic into this to make that work. So now, what is this capacity? This capacity will be the customer allocation rate. Uh, basically, oh, well, wait a second. That's another good question. It would be this rate times what? And we want it times customers for moose times customers for wolf. That's how we want to do this because this is the capacity over here, the total capacity um, available. I don't know if we got this right yet, but it would seem that a better way, I think, of doing this is doing the wolf over or the moose over. Ah, no, I got it. Yep, just trying to keep it simple. Wolf plus moose. Okay, now we have a fraction. It'll always be a fraction, and this will always work. So we're going to take as the allocation rule, the initial rule. We're going to let that rule go over time. Now we can make this fraction dependent on other variables, which is where we would go with this. So we got that. Okay, that's good. The customer allocation rule is in terms of moose. I think I'm going to want to call this the moose allocation fraction. That's what it is. There we go. Now it's better documented too. And yes, we do want to do that there. And there we go. You see it does it properly. Good. And now let's also make this a little bit easier to read. And bring this over. It's kind of like called a molecule, for want of a better name. You know, this allocation fraction, I think it was like 4 out of 30, 4 out of 34 will be for the wolf, and 30 out of 34. So it's going to be a pretty high number of customers will hit moose capacity. So let's just go ahead and do this. We're going to use this rule times whatever customers are, and realize it's going to be changing over time. And this is a very big rule. I mean, it's all going to depend upon moose initial and um, moose and this. And actually, what we can do as an alternative, but I'm going to ask people to do that for an exercise, is to take the actual number. So it'd be pretty high here, right? 36 and 6. Okay, so you can see it's pretty high there, and it drops, and that rises. Okay, so we could use these ratios at any given point in time. And that would be an interesting exercise to do, because then we will make the moose allocation fraction time dependent as this thing rolls through. So without much further ado, we need to put in the moose capacity. Will be a shadow variable using the moose allocation fraction. And the customer stock. That's all the way down here, stock of customers. Okay. And put that down here. that up here. And we're going to do something similar down here as well. I might as well put it in, then we'll fix that when we get to that. Look at how complicated things are when they start getting connected to one another. So here we're going to have, oh, we don't want to do that. We want to use this handy tool called the shadow nose, the shadow tool. There's customers. And this too will also be this moose allocation fraction, but realize it's going to be 1 minus this fraction. 1 minus this fraction reaching this wolf capacity number. So we have to be a little bit cleverer than this, but this will get the job done, I think. If we go ahead and let's just move this over here so we can see what that is. All right, I'm ready to put in this is no longer going to be 100. It's going to be the moose allocation fraction times customers. Now, because customers will change over time given the flow rates, I think we got enough time-based moves throughout the entire system in this model to leave this constant. This moose allocation fraction is going to be constant. It's constant because it's taking the initial wolf and moose customer ratio as the basis. Okay, good. Same idea here, but this time it's 1 minus this allocation fraction. So it's a conservation rule right there. This customer, only one of those is needed. And I think our job is nearly done. So let's run this, see if it runs and gives us any errors. Yes, we want to write this over. Okay, no, good. And I'm going to color that. I want to see that the customer base, yes, it declines from whatever the top number was here. 150, I think, was the number, and it declines exponentially over time. There's a bump up and then a down. Notice that this comes down and then comes back this way. So there's a downward slide and the downward slide changes. There's a bend here. So there's some dynamics there with the addition of moose and wolf. Okay, that's a very interesting dynamic which needs some chatter about. Let's see, what does moose look like? Yeah, we don't need this anymore. Goes up and comes down, so it, okay, there's more smoothing going on here than anything else. Remember, our original model is pretty simple. We get rid of this. There we go. Get a bit up and down. Okay, not much going on, and we already know what the switching looks like. Not the switching, the acquisition. Ooh, almost nothing. Very interesting. Let's see this. Let's see what that looks like. Look, the availability gets lower and lower and lower, as we would expect. The acquisition rate, of course, is that. Now we're gonna get rid of something here and just do this. Limits to growth. I want to overwrite it. Okay. Very good. Now over here, look at this thing whipping around. It's basically saying you have two areas of solution or an equilibrium and go in a couple of different directions. So I'm not going to pay, it's going to start here. It's actually going to start here. Go up and around and whip back over here because it switches. Here's where it switches. See the switch? 33 at 8, 33, 36. Right around here, it's going to switch. Oh, what is this number? So one is 36 and the other is 4. Right around here, it begins to change. As it's coming off, this is where they cross over. And this is a tipping point. A crossover like that, we would call a tipping point in the relationship between the two companies and the predation of one by the other. Okay. Now this, there we go. And that is 4 something, and this is 36 something down here. Okay, good. And 36 and 4.6. Right around here. Right around here is where things are changing. So it's going up, and now it's going to slide down ever more quickly, and that will be what we will call the tipping point for this model, and that occurs when about month 5 or 6. Okay, good. So that number comes from. Now we can use that in later analysis. When we do inference, we're going to look at this as an information flow, and we're going to be doing this over many, many more iterations than this. We're going to give some of these parameters probability distributions and see what the final probability or the imputed, or what we call the inverse probability, is of moose and wolf, how they interact with one another. And that'll be the subject of, well, an interesting exercise in R. So here we are. We have expanded this model in 2 different directions. One is to produce a discounting, further discounting using moose availability and wolf availability. The second, based upon an allocation rule, which we can easily fix. I don't know that it will make much difference, though. We have used a exhaustible resource. That's what this means going out. There's nothing new coming in. 24-month period, we'll say it's a non-renewable resource for the moment. Where as this goes down over time, as it does, because it's all flowing out through wolf and moose company acquisition of this customer stock available to the market, it changes the capacities and again smooths things out. We don't get that ripsaw that we used to have. So we've probably produced an interesting model here. to the extent that capacity matters, I mean, if we change, I want to do one more exercise here. Oh, that's beautiful. If we change this and lower it to, let's make this down to 50, I don't want 2,000, 100, I'll make it 150. Put that in the max min there. Okay, good. Okay, I see all sorts of things moving over here, including our tipping points. Let me, so yes, capacity matters. The customer stock matters tremendously. They start flipping. Ooh, that's an interesting flip right there. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about why this is happening. If we leave this here, remember the initial here is this and this, yeah, 4 and 30, 34, and we have the lowest number. That's the kind of pattern we begin to see. I don't even know what this means down here anymore in terms of that. But if we move this up to move this up to 75, look at the patterns that begin to radically change. So we get a totally different thing. Now, the question then is, in this 24-month period, does the data actually look like this? With capacity, it would. That's that's what we're that's basically what we're saying. And I'm just watching what these are very dynamic graphs. And if we move this and move this, wow, lots of flipping around. Yeah. And what happens if the moose? Oh yeah, that just goes nuts. Okay, so we have lots more dynamical. I've never seen an S shape before. Well, that looks interesting. I don't know. Again, I don't know what that means anymore. Um, we have a lot more to think about in terms of market volatility. In terms of look at this volatility; these are crazy to manage. In terms of what happens at the end of 24 months, if any of these numbers start wildly changing on us. And this definitely, because this affects capacity, affects availability, affects acquisition, both, and then they swing around. And so the predators here, yeah, okay. So let's get out of here. I hope you've had enough fooling around with the model, which is what I want you to experience. That's how we learn about these models. This stuff's impossible really to teach until you begin to play with it. Okay, and then we have discussion somehow. which in an online course is a little bit tough to do. I'm going to leave you with this model. I'm going to call it, I have wolf moose limits. I'm going to deposit this model on the site as well as this overly long um, discussion. I hope you could see how you take an initial model, modify it, play with it, think through with it, and then start looking at the results. And now ask the question, does any of this make any sense? And for what parameters would any of the data look like this? Do we need to have all this capacity stuff in it? Does it really matter? In real life, I know it does. But with some of the biological data, no, not at all. It looks quite a bit different. But this is human data. Okay, that's a little bit different. I'm going to leave you with that. And thank you very much for your kind attention once again. And hope you get some joy out of this one. Um, I think I'm ready for dinner. Anyways, take care and thanks very much. Yes, thanks very much for joining us all on this journey. Next stop is taking this model to R, producing similar pictures, and perhaps playing with it a little bit more in a different platform. But basically, it will be the same model. So we have to find a way to transfer this to R. That'll be our next job. And you might allocate about 51 minutes for that because that's where we are now. Take care.